The man sitting at my dining table didn't even look nervous. He took another bite of my food, looked straight at me and said, "Can I help you?" For a moment I couldn't speak. 11 months earlier, I had locked this front door myself before deploying overseas with the United States Marine Corps. Now my family photos were gone. My furniture had been rearranged. Someone else's jacket hung over my kitchen chair. Then I heard footsteps. A woman walked down my staircase holding a ring of house keys. She smiled as if she'd been expecting me. "You must be Michael Carter," she said calmly. "You're too late. The HOA legally sold your house 3 weeks ago." I looked at the keys in her hand. Then I looked at the spare key still hanging from my own keychain. One of us was standing inside a stolen house. And it wasn't me. Before I tell you how an HOA president convinced an entire neighborhood that my home no longer belonged to me, comment your state or country below. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy stories where justice always catches up with the guilty, subscribe, because what happened next destroyed one of the biggest HOA fraud schemes this town had ever seen. My name is Michael Carter. I'm a United States Marine. After 11 exhausting months overseas, home was the only thing keeping me going. Every long patrol, every sleepless night, every dangerous mission, I kept telling myself the same thing. Just make it home. That house wasn't just a building. It was the first thing I'd ever truly owned. I bought it after my second deployment. Every mortgage payment came from months spent serving my country. Before leaving on my latest deployment, I made sure everything was protected. The mortgage was paid automatically. Property taxes were current. Insurance was active. Utilities remained connected. My attorney held a limited power of attorney for emergencies only. There was absolutely no legal way anyone could sell my home. Yet somehow, a family was living inside it. As I stood in my own living room trying to understand what had happened, a moving truck backed into my driveway. Workers began loading more of my belongings into the truck as if I didn't even exist. I stepped outside. Standing beside the truck was the same woman I'd just seen upstairs. She extended her hand with complete confidence. "Margaret Collins," she said, "President of the Oak Ridge Homeowners Association." Then she handed me a folder. Inside were county records showing that my property had already been transferred to someone else. Everything looked official. Stamped, signed, recorded. It almost looked real. Almost. Because one tiny detail on the last page told me this wasn't just theft. It was federal fraud. And Margaret Collins had no idea she'd just picked the wrong Marine. I didn't say a word. Instead, I kept staring at the last page. Margaret mistook my silence for defeat. "I know this is difficult," she said with a smug smile. "But the property was declared abandoned. After multiple notices went unanswered, the HOA followed the legal process. The new owners have already paid." I slowly looked up. "Abandoned?" She nodded. "You disappeared for almost a year." "I was deployed." She shrugged. "The board can only act on the information it receives." I almost laughed. The United States Marine Corps knew exactly where I was. My mortgage company knew. My insurance company knew. Even the county tax office knew. Yet somehow, the only people claiming I had vanished were standing right in front of me. Something didn't add up. A young couple stepped out onto the porch carrying one of my photo albums. The woman looked embarrassed. I'm sorry," she whispered. "We bought this house last month. They told us it was a foreclosure." I looked at the paperwork in her hands. She wasn't my enemy. She'd been lied to just like I had. "It's okay," I said calmly. "You didn't steal my house." Then I turned back toward Margaret. But someone did. For the first time, the smile disappeared from her face. She quickly interrupted. "If you have concerns, you can contact the HOA attorney. I already know someone I'll be calling." She crossed her arms. "And who would that be?" "My attorney." She smirked. "Good luck." Everything has already been recorded with the county. Perfect. That was exactly what I wanted to hear. Because if forged documents had been recorded, there would be a paper trail. I walked back to my truck, grabbed my deployment backpack, and pulled out a sealed folder. Every important document related to my home had been inside that folder since the day I deployed. The original deed, the purchase agreement, mortgage records, military deployment orders, even notarized signatures. I compared my documents to the copies Margaret had handed me. At first glance, they looked identical. Then I noticed it. One signature. Mine. Except, I had never written it. Someone had copied my name almost perfectly. Almost. They had forgotten one tiny habit. Every legal document I had signed for the past 15 years included my middle initial. The forged signature didn't. One missing letter. That single mistake turned an almost perfect fraud into undeniable evidence. I slipped both documents back into the folder. Margaret was already congratulating the new homeowners, acting as though the nightmare was over. She had no idea it had just begun. I made one phone call, not to the HOA, not to local police, and not to the county clerk. I called the Military Legal Assistance Office. Less than 10 minutes later, my attorney answered. After listening for less than a minute, he became completely silent. Then he asked one question. Michael, are you standing inside your house right now? I am. And there are strangers living there? Yes. His voice turned cold. Don't argue with anyone. Don't leave. I'm contacting federal investigators immediately. I looked back toward Margaret Collins. She was laughing with the buyers on my front porch. She still believed she had won. She had no idea that within the next 24 hours, every lie she had ever told was about to collapse. I barely slept that night. Not because I'd lost my house. Because I knew whoever had forged those documents wasn't working alone. By sunrise, 3 black SUVs rolled onto my street. They weren't local police. They weren't HOA lawyers. They were federal investigators from the Property Fraud Task Force, accompanied by county detectives and my attorney. Neighbors stepped onto their porches, whispering as the agents walked toward my house. Margaret Collins opened the front door wearing the same confident smile she'd worn the day before. I hope you're here to remove him, she said, pointing directly at me. He's refusing to leave private property. The lead investigator didn't even look at me. Instead, he held up a federal warrant. Margaret Collins? Yes. We're investigating allegations of wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, conspiracy, and fraudulent property transfers. Her smile disappeared. There must be some mistake. That's exactly what we're here to determine. The agents entered the house. Within minutes, they collected every document she'd proudly shown me the day before. One investigator compared the signatures to the originals I had brought home from deployment. He looked at Margaret. Who prepared these documents? Our HOA attorney, she answered nervously. Name? She hesitated. I'd rather have my lawyer present. The investigator nodded. You'll have that opportunity. Meanwhile, county detectives searched the HOA office. By lunchtime, they uncovered something no one expected. My file wasn't the only one. There were dozens. Purple folders lined an entire filing cabinet. Each one belonged to a homeowner who had been deployed, hospitalized, elderly, or living out of state. Every file contained forged signatures, fake notices, fraudulent board votes, and illegal property transfers. This had never been about enforcing HOA rules. It was a business. Margaret and 2 accomplices had been targeting homeowners they believed wouldn't return in time to fight back. The young couple who bought my house stood in the driveway, devastated. We had no idea, the husband said quietly. I know, I replied. You were victims too. Late that afternoon, the lead investigator walked toward Margaret with a pair of handcuffs. Margaret Collins, he said. You are under arrest. She took a step backward. I was only following HOA procedures. No, he answered calmly. You were running a fraud scheme. As the handcuffs clicked around her wrists, the entire neighborhood watched in silence. The same neighbors who had believed every rumor now understood the truth. No one cheered. No one spoke. They simply watched as the woman who thought she was untouchable was escorted into the waiting SUV. 2 months later, every fraudulent property transfer was reversed by court order. The buyers received full compensation. The HOA board was dissolved. Several accomplices accepted plea deals. And I finally unlocked my own front door again. The house looked exactly as I remembered. I walked into the living room, placed my deployment bag on the floor, and hung the American flag back beside the front porch. Some battles are fought overseas. Others begin the moment you come home. But no matter where they happen, justice is always worth fighting for.